So we're going to move on to topic 2. Topic 2 is the stray free-roaming dogs in Detroit. Well, first of all, how do you even define what a stray dog is? What is a stray dog? How do you know if an animal is owned, a community animal, lost, or is homeless? How many stray dogs do you think actually exist in the city of Detroit, and why do you believe in this number? What are possible solutions to an epidemic of stray dogs? What are the laws surrounding pickup and rescue of stray dogs? And when did you first hear about stray dogs in the city of Detroit? And what brought you to begin rescuing stray dogs in Detroit? So that's the list of questions. So think about those and raise your hand if you want to comment, you have questions. Yes.
I'm Mel Zemlinski from Dog Aid, as well as the behavior coordinator for Paws for Life. Our guidelines for determining whether or not a dog is a stray involves a lot of getting to know the community. We do a lot of knocking on doors and seeing if anybody knows this dog, showing them a picture on our phones and say, have you seen this dog before? One of the most difficult things, I think, when it comes to working with the stray population in Detroit is that the current laws about, or ordinances about who can pick up and where and why, that is based on the assumption that all these animals were owned at some point or actually have owners, where in a lot of cases we're dealing with multi-generational strays, semi-feral dogs. They may not be terrified of seeing people, but they're not interacting with humans. And I think that understanding who can pick up that stray and why and what the ordinances are needs to change somehow. I don't know how we do it as a group. I would love to hear everybody's suggestions. If the only people that can pick up those dogs are the 23 animal control officers, and if we have somewhere between 15 to 25,000 stray dogs, that's 1,000 dogs per animal control worker. So that's a lot. That's all I have to say.
Yes.
Has anybody TNR'd stray dogs in Detroit? So I don't know. We picked up one, we never released it. But.
I'm with Dog Aid 2012 as well, and Melissa can also speak to this, but we have been trying to figure out a way that we could do trap, neuter, and release. There are a lot of things involved with doing that in logistics that we're still trying to coordinate on that. I know that some people have started doing it with cats. We have to figure out how to chip them with the information so that when you do release them back into the community, if somebody else comes across a stray, how they will know if it has already been fixed and what sort of vetting it's had and all the legal things that go into that. If Dog Aid 2012 were to go out and take a dog, trap, neuter, and release it, put it back into the community, and that dog were to turn around and attack somebody, are we then liable and on the hook for it? So there's a lot that has to go into that, and legal aspects have to be worked out.
Thank you.
Yeah, the legal aspect is a huge thing, and we're in the process of talking with some attorneys on that. There's some really great promising research that's coming out of places like Moscow, Costa Rica, India, about trap, neuter, vaccinate, chip, and release. That allows you, once the animal's trapped, you can scan the chip and then put that number in the computer, see whether or not it's been vaccinated in the last year. But especially with the females, you can tell right away from the chip whether or not it's been spayed or neutered, or well, spayed, which is hard to tell on the ladies. The other concern besides the legal aspect is the logistical, coming from a behavioral perspective of when you are dealing with an established pack of dogs, you cannot remove one animal and then reintroduce it into that pack, because in that period of time that you've removed it, that pack dynamic has already changed, and now even though they may have been a bonded group at one point, you're taking a huge risk of reintroducing that stray dog into a pack that was maybe working together but not necessarily friendly with each other because they're trying to survive. So when you're looking at a situation where there's more than one dog, it's not just the one single stray, you have to have the means necessary to trap everybody, neuter everybody, have them recover together, and then put them back where they belonged and release them together, because otherwise the fights over resources will become a monumental problem.
Yes, please stand.
I think we didn't really touch on this yet, but legislation, I think, is one of the forefronts for what rescues are going to be able to do in the city of Detroit and what they can't do. So I'd like to see resources go towards creating a legal avenue for rescues to come in, do what they need to do, and assist in the organizations that are already here.
You have to stand, please.
What is the law for rescues to pick up strays? Before we even discuss options, what is it?
Yes.
We were informed from the Department of Agriculture, because I'm sure as many groups do, you start out gangbusters and want to go pick up the dogs, because that's what we are, we're rescues. But we rode along with the Department of Ag for a while, and we were told that you either have to be a licensed shelter with licensed animal control officers, and if you're not a shelter, you still have to have licensed animal control officers on board. So we're all in the process of getting our 100 hours towards that. But until then, your hands are tied with just picking up a stray. You can take owner surrenders, you can take surrenders from the police, but you cannot take strays if you're not licensed. So, word of the why.
Debbie, can you speak a little bit to that? Because I know that I have done some research on this, and there are some guidelines on the Michigan Humane Society's website on what to do if you do come across a stray in terms of publishing it on all of the different, networking and holding it for 4 days. Definitely trying to confirm that it is a stray. Is that true, or?
I think every individual municipality is going to handle it differently. And I think that it would be Detroit Animal Control who would probably be best to answer that question, because they are the ones that are animal control for the city of Detroit. And they decide whether or not they're going to have people hold them in their homes and call in about them, or if they're going to come in. So it really depends, I think, on your individual municipality. And as far as the city of Detroit goes, I think that'd be a question best answered by the city of Detroit.
Yes.
I've been pulling dogs out of Detroit for a few years now, and I didn't know for a while that it was, not the right thing to do, that you really couldn't pick up stray dogs. And talking with the Department of Ag, that's absolutely correct, but I was also told from Al Rodriguez that if you were to go to the city that you're in, whether it's Shelby Township, Chesterfield, Detroit, and you go to the main animal control facility, you don't have to have the hours. If you get a letter stating that they allow you to pick up strays, as long as they give you some sort of letter stating that they're allowing you to pick them up, you don't have to have the hours. The problem with that is we all know DAC. They're not a big fan of probably 99.9% of us here. And I'm sure that over in Warren or Clinton Township or Roseville, it'd be a lot easier over there. But the problem that we're all trying to head up right now, is Detroit, and they're just not willing to work with anybody. We've tried knocking on their door 2 years ago, a year ago. You guys are knocking on the door trying, and so it's just going to take a bunch of people to try to get together to be able to do that, instead of just everyone trying to get 100 hours to do something, because the fact is there's a bunch of stray dogs out there and we're all trying to do the same exact thing, and we got to figure something out when it comes to that.
Thanks. Yes, the lady in green here?
Probably not a popular question, but I'm just curious, has anyone heard of anyone getting in trouble for picking up a stray in the city of Detroit? Anyone been prosecuted or anything? Just wondered.
This lady here, the stripes?
We've been called by citizens to come and help strays, and at the same time Detroit Animal Control will show up, and some of the officers are actually quite friendly, and you say, hey, we were called, do you mind if we help? And they're like, nah, see ya, we'll go get coffee.
Oh, good. No.
Marie?
We talk about TNR when it comes to the felines. At Michigan Humane, we have a class that we hold, and we have about 200 feral cat colony caretakers. And you come to the class, and we will provide you with all your resources. And so what we do is we close our shelters down on Sundays, and then we have our vet team as a specialized team that comes in and works with all these feral cat colony caretakers. However, if you agree to commit to that colony, you can't just go to the TNR class and then just let them all go. Okay, good luck everybody. You have to commit to managing this colony. We will help you on making little shelters for them and giving you straw for them and helping you with food for them. I'm just wondering out to the group, if those folks that are working on a TNR for the dogs, how would that work on a TNR program, and what care is provided for these animals that are now back out on the streets?
Yes.
A few of the options we've discussed within our group about that would be monitoring before we would ever do the program, monitoring that group of animals. Because one of the first things that we need to look at is whether or not this pack is successful as a pack, and whether or not they are operating in a very predatory way, or if they're behaving in a acceptable group way. There's been community safety meetings where they show the footage from the courtyard outside of an apartment building where a pack of dogs basically goes after a little girl. By monitoring these groups before we even look at that, is looking at that pack dynamic and seeing have they been behaving appropriately socially for living in a human environment. The next would be, just like with your TNR cats, you have to kind of have that week or so where you're reintroducing them and you're watching them and all that. And I don't do a ton of with cats, I'm a dog trainer. But I do know that you have to go through and kind of monitor them, seeing how they're adjusting would be one of our management strategies. So, does that answer some of your question?
I think it's a challenge. I mean, they can't just always drink from puddles, you know.
Right.
You know, and how that happens, I think it's maybe a little easier with cats, but with dogs, how successful is that?
We as a group have already been doing that. We've already established connections with some packs and have been feeding them and watering them and monitoring them. So I don't think it's a big stretch for us to monitor them afterwards. It just needs to be something that's obviously put into place and made sure to be monitored on a constant basis.
Yes.
Regarding actually cats and dogs and the TNR concept, the city of Detroit has at least said they're going to make a big push to tear down a lot of the abandoned buildings, which is where a lot of the cats and dogs find housing. Has anyone heard of or have connections with the city to establish a line of communication to ask us to help clear out these buildings before they tear them down? We've gotten calls before from private builders, but we're not given a lot of notice, and we're also not equipped with the resources to clear out whole city blocks. So I was just wondering if anyone had heard about this or had thought about it or had any ideas.
Okay, one more, and then for sure we have to move on to address her question.
Sorry, I don't have an answer, but we just purchased a mobile unit with hydraulic lifts, and we don't know what we're doing. We haven't even looked at the dog TNR as far as that goes, but we'd be willing to talk to anybody that needs help and see if we can figure out a solution.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's move on to topic 3, which is collaboration within the animal welfare community itself. And so here's a couple of questions to think about as food for discussion. So what is the process to follow for lost dogs? What are your thoughts about certification for foster homes or rescue groups? Who is available to assist with animals in need after hours? Have you participated in the WA2S census? If not, then you're going to want to talk to Michelle over here. She's collecting data for that. What opportunities or ideas do you have in regard to collaboration within the local Detroit animal welfare community? Have you had positive or negative experiences that we can learn from in regards to collaboration? What organizations are the most active in the Detroit animal welfare community? What skills or resources do you bring to the community? And how do you already collaborate with other rescuers in the community? It's a lot of questions. Do you want me to read them again? Go ahead. Yeah.
In terms of collaboration, Dog Aid 2012 is primarily comprised of 8 members. They're rescuers that are affiliated with other rescue organizations. Our main focus is community awareness and education, and we get out there every week and we're dealing with the community. We're feeding the strays, we're giving them water, we're monitoring the situation. But when we come across certain situations, we are networking with a whole host of other rescues. We all work together. If we have a dog, we place it, rescues will step up. Animal Welfare Society steps up. There's a whole bunch of other different rescues that are all now working together to get dogs placed. So we're all pulling our resources and trying to, make a huge change in terms of education, helping the community with their dogs, and saving as many dogs as we can.
All About Animals Rescue, like Amber just mentioned, we purchased a spay and neuter mobile van that will go into the communities. And so for us, it's extremely critical to network with all the rescues that are already, working or going to be working in Detroit to talk to the community. So right now, we're already working with Dog Movement. Dog Aid's been great. Chained has been wonderful as well, of getting that information out that spay and neuter is available, affordable cost, we can help you, whatever it takes to help you, we're gonna do. So any rescue group that's interested, we need that help to get that information out to the communities, because you're much more familiar with the people in your community than we are, but we're here to help, and that's why we got the van.
Yes.
To All About Animals, when we want to call you out, do you have a minimum of the spay and neuters that you can do? Do you have a maximum?
We do. So what we're doing is we're looking at different locations, and what we're going 5 days at a time to different locations. So we are looking for other places in the communities, in Detroit, well, anywhere, but in Detroit, of locations that we can park for usually 5 days at a time is what we're looking at. The van would only be in there through the day, would be gone at the night, but we'd be able to spay and neuter that whole time for 5 days in a row, go to another location and come back so people can get to it and not be stationary.
All right, so if we set it all up and we have a bunch of dogs that need spay and neuter, and we can pull you downriver and you're...
Absolutely. We also, just to mention this, we have 2 transport vans and a mobile spay and neuter unit. And what that means is that transport van, for example, can go downriver and pick all those pets up, bring them back to our facility, high volume spay and neuter facility in Warren, spay and neuter them and bring them back the next day. So you may not need us to have the mobile spay and neuter van. You may... Absolutely.
Transport and get it done.
Absolutely, ton of options. We've done 45,000 spays and neuters since 2005. 15,000 last year. We'll do probably 22 this year with the mobile van and our stationary. We got the capacity, we can help.
How about the officer here in the back?
If they're not a pit or a pit mix, and they want to bring their dog to the van, what's the price? Because I know it's free, right, for the pit and pit mixes.
This upcoming week, it's free. We're looking for grants to try to continue that. We'll work with anyone. Regular price is $80 for a dog, $40 for a cat, $25 for a feral. However, we subsidize a ton of surgeries through our grants, through people making donations to us. No one that I know of has ever been turned away.
Thank you.
And I do want to say that that's a perfect example of what's been going on for the last couple of months with All About Animals. We met and Detroit Dog Movement, Dog Aid, which also allowed me to then talk to the communities about education. We've been working with the Detroit Police. It's a perfect example of the van of lots of organizations being able to come together and provide education, provide services, and really get into the community. So it's really been a great prime example of how we're all coming together right now to try to make some changes within the city.
Great.
I think another key element that I'm aware of relative to the collaboration and to get granting, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're all the experts, I'm not, is that we all need to be transparent in sharing information with one another. And it's my understanding that because there are some shelters that have not shared that information in the past, it has cost the state of Michigan money. So as part of this collaboration, it's critical that we all share statistics and information across all of you so that we can get the grants to help each other, to share resources, to collaborate, to, in my opinion, the only mission we have is to save animals.
Thank you.
Does that mean that since the DAC has not shared those stats with the state, that like they could be getting more money to help their situation and they're not? Is that correct?
Yeah, I submitted a Freedom of Information Act right when the ACE situation was happening, was able to acquire all the shelter inspection reports from 2007 until November 1st. When I talked with one of the representatives from the Department of Agriculture and the FOIA coordinator, I asked them what is the punishment or corrections process for not filing their annual shelter activity reports, which they haven't done in 5 years. And she said that there are no punitive measures technically, but that they are no longer eligible for grants through the Department of Agriculture if they do not submit those shelter reports. So for people who have brick and mortar shelters, if you're not reporting, there is a loss of funding that you aren't able to get.
Thank you. Yes.
So just to be really clear, because you're talking about, Detroit Animal Control has not submitted their numbers for years, and that absolutely costs organizations grants, because the three major players are Michigan Humane Society, Detroit Animal Control, and the Michigan Anti-Cruelty Society. And for us, the rest of us groups, if we can't get those numbers, then the major funders won't pay attention to what we're trying to get grants to help Detroit, because we need those numbers or they won't help. So it is incredibly important, and to your point, Detroit Animal Control, if they do not submit those, that's a huge loss to the rest of us to help.
And I would like to know why if anyone knows, why there are no legal measures against DAC for this. Just because no one cares?
Okay, go ahead.
Debbie, instead of calling the 313-872-3471, can I report any violations of DAC to you to go ahead?
It's 3401, but yeah, it all goes to the Department of Agriculture.